All right, today we're talking about how to go from being a worker in an industry to monetizing the expertise that you develop and building a business around it. My guest today is Kathy Weidner. I'll tell you more about her in a second, so stay tuned.
Welcome to the Smart Business Revolution podcast, where we feature top entrepreneurs, business leaders, and thought leaders and ask them how they built key relationships to get where they are today. Now, let's get started with the show.
All right, welcome. John Corcoran here. I'm the host of the show, and if you've listened before, every week we get smart CEOs, founders, and entrepreneurs from all kinds of companies, and we've had Netflix and Grubhub and Redfin, Gusto, Kinko's, lots of great episodes. Check out the archives if you want to check those out. And before we get into this interview, this episode is brought to you by Rise25. At Rise25, we help businesses give to and connect to their dream relationships and partnerships. How do we do that? We do that by helping you to run your podcast and content marketing. We have the easy button for a company to launch and run a podcast. We do strategy, accountability, and full execution, and even gifting on the back end as well. And if you want to learn more about it, you can learn more at rise25.com. And it's been the pleasure of my life to be able to take people like you, Kathy, and share your story with my listeners. And so I'm really excited about diving into that. You can also email us at support@rise25.com. All right, let's get into our guest here, Kathy Weidner. She's also known professionally as Kathy Mills Chang. She began her career in the chiropractic field back in the early 1980s. Started as a chiropractic assistant, quickly worked up into management, and has monetized that expertise in a platform that she runs today. So you're going to hear all about how she did that. But Kathy, I'm really excited to hear your story. And I love to start with what people were like as a kid. And I love this. I've interviewed people before that have worked at McDonald's, but I think you're the first one that had to lie about their age because you weren't 16 yet and you wanted to work at McDonald's so desperately. So tell us about that.
Well, that's true. My birthday's in August, and I was dead set to get contact lenses before school started, the beginning of my junior year. And so I had to fib about how old I was because maybe back in those days, you really had to be 16 to get a job. So I did, and I got the job. McDonald's was just what was easy because it was near my house. But I probably today can point back to, gosh, so many lessons I learned there that are still applicable in business today. When I worked in a corporation-owned McDonald's versus a franchise. So just the way I was trained, what I was taught about customer service, it just never gets old.
Yeah. So it was a positive experience because sometimes people kind of, they refer pejoratively to working at
Yes.
McDonald's.
Well, I will tell you that my negative was that I did start young. And the problem with that was that I advanced to a team leader and then they wanted to make me a manager, but I wasn't 18. So I was barely 16. So I couldn't progress there because I wasn't able, I wasn't of the right age. So I kind of shot myself in the foot there.
I guess, is it for the manager position? Then you have to turn over your birth certificate and provide proof or something like that?
I guess. Well, we had quite a tight-knit group there because there was a group of us that opened and a group of us that closed. And back in those days, what was super exciting was to go to Rocky Horror Picture Show at midnight. And then if we opened, we just stayed out and we would TP somebody's house or something. That was the days when we had so much TP, you threw it away, or eggs. Given the current state of eggs, and it was all in good fun. But then we would just go open up the McDonald's early, and off to work we went. So it was a good group, a really tight group there, which I really enjoyed. Still friends with many of them.
How did you get interested in chiropractic care? Because I know early in your career you were a chiropractic assistant in a chiropractic office. Was something that drew you to that field, or did you just happenstance and you ended up getting a job in one?
Very much happenstance. After college, I worked for in business with an optometrist. Did a lot of things. My claim to fame there is I taught John McCain how to put in his contact lenses. So that was
Wow.
That's a notch on my wall, right?
Well, let's see. This maybe it was the early 80s.
Early
So
80s.
he was a war hero with the national profile. So he wasn't a senator yet, but he was famous.
He was running for Congress, and
okay.
the doctor that I worked for was very active in the Republican Party in Arizona. In fact, his wife later became president of the Arizona Senate. And so he brought him in and they put the context I was trying to teach. That was my job. One of my jobs, I taught people that. And my brother owned an x-ray company. And in so doing, had a bet with the cow, something, I don't know what it was. And whoever lost had to take the other out to dinner. And in that dinner, they found out that the woman that was going to be doing their insurance billing was pregnant and leaving, and they need to hire somebody else. So he recommended me. I was made all kinds of promises. I took the job, and I was supposed to have like 3 months of training, and she left after 2 weeks. So I learned the job literally by doing it. And I think that's been a real learning lesson for me over my career has been when you just do it, you find out more sometimes than anything else. And so I did. We grew over the 5 years I worked there into several offices, and I was off to the races and kind of became expert at the whole process of insurance billing and collections.
And what was it? Now, I remember you told me before we started recording a story about when you were a kid, you set up a trunk in your childhood bedroom as an office. So
Yes.
it seemed like maybe you were inclined already towards being an organized person since you already built yourself a desk at age 7 or whatever.
Exactly.
But
That's
what was it, do
exactly
you think,
right.
about billing? Like what drew it to you? And why do you think you had a knack for it?
It's a challenge. I think that all of us entrepreneurs are wired to solve problems ultimately. And I think that's probably what it was for me because I became very, very good at getting it right out the door. But when they didn't pay properly when they should have, I knew how to fight for what needed to happen. So I think that I get, like I think many of us entrepreneurs do, get a little bit of a charge for the win. And that was
Mhm.
definitely something for me. A side note on that is that my father was a professional baseball umpire. So during those years, they kind of come up the same way the players do, where they come up through A ball, double A, triple A into the majors. And so we traveled around a lot to see my dad. And believe it or not, I had a briefcase that was carried around with me. That was an extension of my childhood desk. So yeah,
Wow.
I was doomed from the beginning.
So you figured out you develop a knack for this and you eventually start managing these offices.
Mm.
And then at some point you kind of became a thought leader in the space, taking your systems, your processes, your expertise that you built. And then I guess there was more of a demand amongst other chiropractors for you to speak. Talk a little bit about how that came about.
So when I was through this particular first office that I worked at, around that time, we were seeking to adopt our son, or any person at that point turned out to be our son. And all of a sudden, I was working these long days because many doctors will work like Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 8 to 8 or something like that. And so now all of a sudden I'm a mother and I really can't do that. And so I knew a chiropractor from church who happened to be president of the state association in that state where I lived in Arizona. And he said, look, I really need help. Things are not going right. If you'll come over, you can work whatever hours you want. Just let's get the job done. You can work from home, whatever you need to do. I need you just on this job. And so that started a different angle for me in my life because then all of a sudden they needed a speaker on something at a convention and they invited me. And then people who saw me there invited me, and it went on and on. And then around 1994, I was speaking nationally for an organization that put on seminars every weekend. So crazy person that I was speaking, working all week and then leaving and speaking on the weekends and coming back and working all week. It was a little bit frenetic.
Mm.
But during that time, my husband at the time took a position at West Point and we moved to New York. Worked for the largest chiropractic group practice in the state. I was sort of a practice administrator for all those offices. But where things really shifted for me was when he was asked to take a position in Washington, D.C., and we moved. The government moved us there. And I sought out a job at the American Chiropractic Association, which is the national association, the largest one representing doctors in the United States. And they knew of all of my history and they hired me. And then through that job, I actually started speaking nationally for them. And that sort of helped me learn more and more, and people knew me, et cetera.
And so
And
you're taking your knowledge kind of the next level at that point.
Yeah, and at that point, as my job there was really to get into the nitty-gritty. Like I was the representative, the staff representative to CMS and Medicare, and getting details and making opinions about changes that they're looking to do. Same with the AMA for coding and all of these things. So I sort of worked with the volunteers and became truly an expert in Medicare, an expert in billing and coding and documentation and compliance. And so that's when, I was sort of elevated, I don't know, by accident, but I just sort of was elevated into this position because I just knew what I was doing.
Yeah. And you found that it was something that was of a lot of value to the practitioners out there who are struggle,
Yes.
go into it because they care about alleviating pain. And then it turns out that they have to also be an expert at billing and coding
Yeah.
and dealing with insurance and all that kind of stuff.
They do not learn that in school.
No.
That is for sure. Frankly, which is, the reason my business has flourished over these years is just because we fill a need. But I would say the real boost came after about 18 months in Washington, D.C. It became very clear I did not want to raise my son there. And the government again asked my husband to take the position at one of the regional headquarters, which is Denver, and we moved to Denver. And the last presentation that I did, a doctor came up to me afterward and said, "You're an amazing presenter. Obviously, you know what you're doing. I have a company. We do consulting. I'd love to have you join us if anything changes." I said, "Well, as a matter of fact, I'm about to move." And so be it. I became a consultant with a national consulting company working with doctors of all types, multidisciplinary practices, et cetera. And it was during the 6 years there that I really honed my ability to take what I knew and turn it into educational material in an online learning management system, which is what I did for this guy.
And so, but that's a whole new skill set, right? Like
Yeah.
taking knowledge and expertise and then getting people to pay for access to that knowledge and expertise in a learning management system or a university or whatever. I've
Hmm.
seen so many people, so many professionals that want to make that shift
Yeah.
and struggle with it. So talk a little bit about how you went about it. Even just the nuts and bolts of like, how do I capture my knowledge and expertise? How do I put it into a website or a medium where people can access it? I mean, all of those things probably were things you struggled with, I imagine, in the early days.
Well, and when I worked at that consulting company, I sort of naturally had the talent of creating material. And like you had a need, you had, make once, use many kind of a mentality. And so several of the contracted coaches, because we also coach the doctors, and I was on the sales team as well. And we would develop the material because we didn't want to have to keep saying it over and over again, And so slowly but surely they had a website and all of that happened. And after 6 years, I just sort of felt like I could do it better, stronger, faster myself. And I
Mm.
made the decision that I was going to leave. I left on very, very good terms. I was very authentic about what I was doing and et cetera. And then I think it was probably a lot of bravado, to be honest with you, because I just started with, "Hey, I know I have this whole list of doctors. I'm going to just do an online presentation." Well, then someone said, "Why don't you record it? Well, why don't you press it into a CD, if you can imagine a
But this is
CD?"
the mid 2000s.
This would have been, yeah,
Okay.
2000, well, 15 years. So yeah, 2008
Okay.
probably was about
Okay.
the time.
Yeah.
And so during those days, I just found out how to absolutely press these CDs. And then when
Hmm.
I was out speaking, I would sell them for like $25 because I didn't know any better.
Mm.
And then all of a sudden someone said, "Well, why don't you just put these into a website?" And
Hmm.
so we built from scratch a website that had all of the material, grouped into courses and all, not even using a platform at that
Mm.
point.
Mm.
And we bumped and bruised our way through all of that until now we've advanced through two other learning management systems to get where we are now. But um, it is a gift to be able to know what it is. And then I hired two retired educational design specialists who had
Mm.
worked for LL Bean doing all of their training materials. And they were older ladies that just wanted some side work. And so they would help us design everything. Hey, you got too many words here. We need a picture, or, those kind of things. So it was truly having the right village around me.
And so now you have a lot of your expertise, and it is gathered up into a learning management system, which people
Yes.
can pay a subscription fee in order to get access to that. Where do you draw the line now between what you go out and you talk about freely, and where do you draw the line and say, well, if you want more of that, then that's what my subscription is for? How do you just figure out what the line is there?
John, it's a very fine line, truly. And I find that I live by the mantra, you can never give yourself poor. And so from my perspective, and a lot of the time when I'm out speaking, it's for continuing education credit. So it does have to have meat on the bone. It can't be fluff. But a great example is just literally yesterday, we put on our own live webinar on the topic of billing, as it turned out. And it was Billing 101, a primer for, CAs and DCs. And over 500 people registered. And we had 300 and some odd live. And, certainly I could have taught that same bit of information in 12 hours to go deeper. So there's a surface overview. I want to say there's probably very much a marketing angle to that, where you say just enough to make them go, wait a minute, I don't do it that way, and then want to ask for more. Our company also, does one-on-one coaching. We also do consultations. It's not an analysis services. It's not just
So it's not just go get the knowledge. Yeah.
No.
Yeah. And you probably developed that over time, figuring out that we need to have other people that can do more done for you or done with you model. Yeah.
Totally. And the problem also is, frankly, like most of us, I would imagine, I want someone to tell me what to do. I don't want to go read or learn about it myself. Yeah. So that is a true downside of what this is. Now, we built it. So, and actually we have a certification in there that people can work toward and, have the certification. Most assistants in our industry don't have any way to have letters after their name or something. So, we've tried to come at it from that angle where it is truly education. Yeah. And then there's a live help desk. There's an email help desk. They have us right at their fingertips. And everyone who works for me in this capacity is a certified specialist. So they're going to get the right answer. One of our core values is insist on accuracy because it is technical.
And is one of the challenges for you is keeping up with the changes, or is there enough material in there that you don't feel like you have to constantly be updating it?
To be honest, we're on top of it between all of us, and we're pretty well connected in the industry and in healthcare in general. We also hold certifications ourselves that we have to go get continuing ed for. So when we do that and might learn of something coming, some change with, lately it's all about Medicare Advantage plans. And we know what's in the library enough to say, okay, like this publication from Medicare that we use as a resource, once a quarter, people go through all of them and they look at them to see if they've been updated so that we just swap it out. So yeah. I do have a development team that helps me with that kind of stuff for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's shift to talking about Entrepreneurs Organization, because we connected through Entrepreneurs Organization. And I know that you have been very involved with that community. First of all, what, drew you to Entrepreneurs Organization in the first place?
So the same doctor that I went to work for and helped build their learning management system, that consultant who saw me speak, he was a member, is still a member, I believe, in Florida. And I was speaking in Florida at an event at the Doral, and I hollered and said, hey, I'm going to be here. Do you want to have lunch? He came over to have lunch with me. And I would say the best word to describe what I was doing was whining about how lonely it is. I'd been in business at that point by myself, probably, I guess it's 8 years ago. It's probably 6 years, 7 years. And I was saying, look, I'm a woman. I'm an older woman. My friends don't understand why I travel so much. I am frustrated. He goes, you need to go look at this thing called EO. And really, an impetus for me was I wanted a community, but I also wanted to be around more women like me, women who, in fact, have to be the boss, run a business and whatnot. I came right home. My husband and I got on a call with who was the membership chair at that time. And I was like, boom, this is what I want to do. And I was off to the races. My entry point was like 3 months later, I think. And then, because I traveled so much, I kind of didn't tap into everything I could in the beginning. The first several years, I was missing events and all. I had Forum, of course, which I loved, but I didn't even partake of all of it. And then COVID hit, and all of the things I was doing out there in the world were canceled or moved to virtual. So all of a sudden, I had more time. And I was tapped on the shoulder, and they asked if I would like to help with membership. And I have a membership-based company, so it made sense to me.
And you mentioned your husband was on that call. Is he in the business?
He is. And he is, while he's not on the paperwork, I do deem him as my partner in everything we do. At that time, he was much more involved. He's since kind of semi-retired and kind of covers fractional CFO duties for us. But at that time, it was a big expense to consider EO and a big time commitment, what I thought was a time commitment at that point. And so I really wanted to just have him hear what I was hearing, so that as I made this decision, I was doing it kind of as a family, so that he was all in, which in my years as membership chair, I always tried to do that myself. Was to, it's one of the questions on a local application is, does your team and your family support you, joining and doing this? Because I do think it's really important.
Oh, that's a question I haven't asked as membership chair of our chapter. I need to incorporate that into our process. Thank you.
Yeah, it's good.
And so you went from being active in your forum to being involved on the board level to being involved on the regional level. Talk a little bit about the impact that has had going through that journey and kind of elevating and getting more involved on a regional level.
Well, I think the number one foundational piece for me is that I get so much more out of everything. First of all, EO absolutely invests so much money, time, and energy in developing its leaders. And everything that I would learn in the portfolio that I'm attached to, which is the growth portfolio, applied exactly to my business. Literally, I was on a meeting this morning, and they were talking about this next year. It's a bunch for the leaders of next year. And EO has a vision for 2030. And the comment that was made was, we don't really have to get more members every year than we're doing now. What we have to do is have better retention.
Yeah.
And the numbers, lower the churn rate.
Which is probably something that you're quite knowledgeable in.
Well, that's the whole point, right?
Yeah.
So it hit me when and literally I had a sales meeting with my team a little earlier today. And I said, let's look at this from the standpoint of our new people coming in are here. And you can see that, it is doing what it's doing. But as with most things, if you stop the churn, you grow anyway. And that's a little obvious thing probably, but then the way I heard it that day, it hit me and I brought it back to my team. But I think not only the leadership training, the fact that it's attached to membership, but the number one thing for me has been expanding, I'm going to say my network, but not for networking. Like, I have more people that I know who I feel like, including you, John, I could pull up the phone and go, I have this problem. You seem to know about this. Can you help me? And anywhere in the world. And so at the regional level, in my role, we're connected to a global portfolio. So there's one of me as a growth director in all 10 regions. So I have 10 counterparts around the world. They've become some of my closest friends because we're all doing the same thing. We're at these same meetings together. And in the short term, I guess it kind of fulfilled what I was looking for way back when, was having better connection, better people, where everything else about EO is gravy for me because of the connections and the connection from my heart that I have with all these people. And in my purview over what I do in the region, I feel so close to really all the people that I work with. And, I was just at a meeting all last week in Puerto Vallarta for all the US regions, and, hugs and how you doing and how's it been? And that's just, I crave that as a human. And this is the place that I got it many years ago when I was super active in church. I kind of got that from church. Not so much anymore. And so it sort of filled the need for that for me. I don't have a big family, so I don't have that. And of course, then all the gravy that comes with it, all the learning, all of the advantages, all of the experience shares, all of the activities, all the travel, it's all gravy.
It was all that community that you were craving to solve the loneliness on that call that you described years earlier. And I feel the same way. It's sometimes it blows my mind a little bit to think that you've got these connections with people that are dispersed all around the globe, living in different communities, different cities all over the globe. But you feel like you have this really strong connection with people that you don't see in person all that frequently. But, you feel like a really strong connection with them. It's really
because
cool.
We're the same person. We're entrepreneurs. And I think that common bond really binds us together. That's why Forum works as well as it does, right? Because you're talking to people who've been there and done that, and they have experiences to share with you, and you're not truly alone.
Yeah. And on that note, we'll wrap up. Kathy, this has been great. Really loved hearing your stories and everything. Where can people go to check you out and learn more about you?
Our website is www.kmcuniversity.com. I'm on WhatsApp as well, of course, all over the place. You can always find me, but our website is probably the best place.
Excellent. Kathy, thanks so much.
My pleasure.
Thanks for listening to the Smart Business Revolution podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.